Hello and welcome to another tutorial of landscapes, and I'm always feeling inspired to paint what I capture on my camera, and obviously there is a mental record in my brain from the sights of the flowers, the landscapes, the mountains, the sunshine, the skies, the greens, and all the beautiful things. I have so many pictures of the landscapes when I go for walks that I wanted to paint this beautiful spring landscape as we are in the month of March, and time has been going really fast, and the flowers have been blooming and they look gorgeous. I decided to paint this spring landscape with some wild red flowers. My reference pictures have flowers that are more pink, but I decided to use this red color that I have on my palette and try to mimic some of those beautiful colors that I have in my reference. There are pinks and yellows, but I decided to just keep it to the reds for this video. The challenge with painting flowers sometimes is the grass or the greens that are also part of the background. So it's hard for us to separate the flowers once we've painted the greens. So I decided to use some masking fluid for this purpose, and also with the intention to show you how beautifully this whole thing works. I have used masking fluid and used an old brush to randomly place the masking fluid on the paper where I intend to have the flowers. So once the painting is going to be dry, I'm going to start inking the paints on it. But in the meantime, I like to analyze some of my paintings and see what I like in each one of them, what I like the most in each one of them, and try to register that when I'm painting the next one, and say, try to have a progression of my skills as I paint along. And these are some examples that I'm showing you of the same red flowers but painted with some trees. Some are really loose, and for one I actually added a cottage. The skies are different, the land, the tilt in the land is a little different. So I was just referring to that before I actually start painting this latest one, and just keeping them beside my painting in case I want to refer to them. So let's get painting. When I was taking some pictures, I also was under a shower, a spring shower, or I would say the rain was so beautiful that I intended to actually make this painting one that had a little bit of a rain, like a nimbus cloud. Then I decided I'll just make it a clear sky. It's not my intention to make this a typical spring landscape, but I did follow the watercolor rules and intentionally set out to paint this landscape, wanting to capture the vegetation and its freshness, and also the beautiful flowers, and make them more lively as they jump around the meadow, and I would say and exhibit a beautiful display of colors. This painting is not a really large sized one, nor it's a mini one, but the whole preparation for this landscape, since we have all these masses of flowers, was to create this beautiful solid color of paint, but retaining those whites on the paper, because that's what's going to create a beautiful interest in the painting. The direction of the flowers are, I would say, looking up to the sky. but when we start painting the grasses, they're going to be in all directions. So I wanted to express this freshness and luminosity to represent the skies as well as the spring flowers. The clouds are going to be painted using the wet on wet, and wet on dry has also been used, but you will see that all of this comes together when the greens are saturated, and it's a beautiful chromatic tension, I would say, on the right side of the painting. The rendering of the flowers is absolutely beautiful. I'm trying to make them as loose as possible but still have a movement and not have like a homogeneous mass of red on one side of the foreground. So, keep these little tips in mind and enjoy the painting, have fun. Now once this is done, I'm going to make sure the painting is the paints on the masking fluid are also dry before we start adding the other details. So it's very important that the paints as well as the masking fluid is absolutely dry, like really dry. So you'll have to wait for a couple of minutes and be patient, because if you don't, then everything is going to be a mess. So we need to dry and then begin painting. It's time to paint the sky as well as all the elements that are lying close to the horizon line. Now the horizon line, I have marked it at the 1/3 position because we have so much happening in the bottom 3/4 area that we have to keep the top section really light and quite hazy. We don't want really dark or details that are really fine, because we don't really get to see those details even in reality, because everything that's distant is going to be hazy, but yet we know the color differentiation. So I'm going to paint the blue and keep it very minimal, and I decided that I'm going to use the phthalo blue green shade. I love this for the skies. I was in total awe when I used it the first time, and I think it just beats cerulean blue. It beats all the other blues, horizon blue, whatever other blues, cobalt blue also, if you're going to be using for the sky. This is just perfect because it has that punch to it, but it settles down extremely beautiful, sophisticated color and very well made. I love the phthalo blue green shade for the skies. So if you haven't tried it, I highly recommend that you pick this color up in a tiny tube and try it out. It just works brilliant for skies. It also mixes really well for other colors in case you're trying to mix it for a darker green. It works absolutely great. Now I'm painting the land beneath the horizon line, and I'm going to be adding some lighter greens, some darker greens, and while that's drying, I'm coming into the foreground and adding a darker green for the grasses. But you will notice that my brush strokes are really different from what I'm using in the middle of the paper and what I am stroking as in the foreground. So it's more like a top to down kind of a stroke in the foreground, whereas in the middle of the paper, it's more from a left to right kind of a movement. So make sure you take note of that and also use different greens. And you can do that. I've said this in many of the videos. Just mix a red to mute the green, or you can add a little brown, or you can try out any of the blues. But I would say an ultramarine blue works really well, or with a sap green if you want to darken it, or you can use a Payne's gray or an indigo to darken the green. At this point, I am trying to fill in the white spaces that we have with some darker greens, and as you can see, trying to create some kind of an interest with the land and using a little darker green there, and my strokes are more diagonal right now. Now I'm going to add the trees. And I'm using the same green that I used for the trees, and it's just a blob of green with a little bit of variety on the edges to create a sense of leaves on the branches. So taking care that I'm not going to make it a uniform shape, and further away the trees are, they're going to be lighter, smaller, and the ones that are closer to us are going to be a little more darker. So I'm not overdoing it because I don't want to complicate the whole painting, but I'm making sure that the sky was dry before I actually did that. And very gently using my round tip brush, I am laying the paints out. And I have actually changed the brush a couple of times from a flat to a tiny tip to a medium round brush. And as you can see, the stroking of the brush, tip of the brush is going to be diagonal in all directions to create some interest in the painting. I decided that I'm going to add a mountain. I do not recommend that you paint a mountain at this point in time, but I'm so mesmerized with this color, which is called the Antwerp Blue, and it's a very sophisticated color. So I'm using my flat brush to paint the mountain, and I'm making sure that I do not mess with the trees. And as you know, the sky is already dry, and I'm just going over that area on the left side and making quite a natural curve to indicate the mountain. I'm using a little bit of brown to highlight the horizon line because I felt there was a lot of green and blues and reds. So trying to break the monotony by adding in a dark brown randomly. So nowhere we want patches of color to be seen. I'm using a little bit of that to darken the foreground as well. This actually helps in tying the whole painting together. Remember to switch up your brushes and the brush strokes. As you can see, different colors, different strokes, different greens, and they all add character to the painting. It's time to remove the masking fluid. Make sure that the entire paint that was laid on the paper is completely dry, like absolute bone dry. And I'm using a clean eraser that I have and removing the masking fluid. I find this very therapeutic. I don't know for what reason, but if you have tried this, just let me know. Do you like removing the masking fluid? Isn't there something so calming about it? I absolutely love it. So I'm going to take my time and get all that masking fluid off the paper before we ink in more of those reds and actually let those flowers pop on the paper. So I have removed the masking fluid, and as you can see now we have blobs of white that are seen. It looks a little odd though, but now I'm going in and filling in those white spaces with the same red that we used initially. So we don't want to fill it up entirely, we just want it to be a natural look. And you can also add some oranges and purples if you like. You can just make sure that you don't overdo anything, and you can add the darker reds if you have like a cooler red on an orange and purple, a purple and a cooler red beneath the flowers to indicate that the sun is actually not hitting them. And you can use a yellow or an orange on the top part of the flowers to indicate that there is sunshine and light is actually shining on them. But these are little tips, but you can take it and you can just play around or just randomly add the paint as I am doing it. we are almost at the end of the painting, and this is where I can't stop. So I have to tell myself that it's time for me to stop adding any more color or any more details to a painting, because it's going to mess it up, it's going to overdo it, it's going to take away that beautiful simplicity that a watercolor painting should have. So I'm going to almost end this painting, but I hope you enjoyed this whole process. I hope you enjoyed it as well as learned a lot of tips along the way, and give your own spin to your paintings because it's your painting, you have a style to it. But this demonstration was to inspire you to take walks outside, take pictures, and paint. Painting is absolutely so beautiful, and you will see that just one picture or a few pictures will render so many different kind of paintings, because you are not just going to use the reference, but you are going to use your memory, your muscle memory as well. And you never know, you may paint mountains, you may paint trees, or you may leave the sky absolutely plain like it is on a spring day, or you could add some nimbus clouds to indicate there is some rain that's going to be expected. So, watercolor painting or being creative is absolutely the key to keep yourself happy and wonderful. And along the way, do compare your results, make notes of it, and do not forget to add that signature. So, have a great day, and thanks for watching.